And welcome everybody to the Weekly WP Roundup with BJ Keeton. That's me. Finally, thank you guys for coming out. I apologize about the stream health issue. Do think that has been taken care of, and it looks like it is now going to both YouTube and Facebook. So let me know if you have any issues with that, and we'll move forward. So I really, like I said, appreciate your patience on that. So welcome back, everybody. I have been away the last couple of weeks. I was very sick last week, so I appreciate you giving me the time to rest, and hopefully it didn't inconvenience you too much or you miss me too badly. But that said, if you guys have never tuned into this, or if you're new to the stream or whatever it is, we go through a list of articles that I've gathered in the description of this video. So all of the things that we're talking about this week are going to be in the description of this video. So you can expand that and click through and give those content creators a little bit of love. The way that we tend to go through these is it's a very open conversation where anything that you have to say, please feel free. Any questions that you have, please ask. We have a wonderful community who shows up regularly, and they tend to help with questions and comments. It's just wonderful. So feel free to say hi, say hello, ask any questions, comment, and so let's just have a good time for the next hour. I'm seeing a lot of comments. I do end up getting distracted occasionally by the comments, so feel free to throw anything in there to get my attention and confuse me. Anytime that you want to. So that will be fun. But yeah, so let's move on into the news this week, since I have some to get to. Like I said, last couple of weeks I've been gone, so there have been a couple of things that I wanted to talk about that I wanted to make sure that you guys were aware of. The first being, did you guys know that Elegant Themes got a revamp? That we redid the website, that we redid our blog, even the Facebook and YouTube channels got updates to the header image, to the logos and everything, where Kenny and his design team did such a good job on this. I wanted to make sure that you guys knew about it, just how slick and clean and fast all of it is. We've made some improvements that you guys wanted. I know that you guys have been wanting an API labeling feature forever in the members area, so that if you have 1,500 different sites on Divi and you have an API key for each one, you can now label that in your dashboard instead of having to keep a separate document, or just keeping it a list of 1,500 different Divi API keys. So you're able to go through and do that, and it is an absolutely magnificent addition. Additionally to the addition, the site itself just runs very smoothly. We focused in on the products that we know that you guys want and love, and so you can check it out and get much more easy access to the features that you have as a member of our community, such as the community forums, the live chat support, and everything along those lines. You can now mouse over the header and get a description of everything that's going on there. So everything is right at your fingertips now, so that you will not have any kind of issues on that one. I see John on Facebook, John Arnold, says that the new page is missing a link to the blog in the menu, and we've had that brought to our attention a few times. There is a link in the footer of the page that you can get to the blog on, and you can also add /blog to the end of the URL. I believe it was done so that we can focus in on the products and everything like that, so that we can focus in on giving you guys access to the community forums and stuff. But that has been heard, and we're looking into seeing how it goes. We're having some discussions behind the scenes, but I understand we were so confused that first day. The content team, we were going to check our articles and comments, and it was like, we can't find the blog. And I know that we are aware of that, and they're talking about that right now. So I want to look at the comments on YouTube here for just a second. that I'm frantically mashing buttons to get the stream working again. I certainly was. I was like, I don't understand why this is going, but I changed a bunch of settings and got it to finally show green and not taking all of my CPU. So there's that. But I'm so glad that DJ is here to troll me. He's one of my Twitter buddies, so I certainly appreciate that. And Dave is right. Uncle Social, you did forget to mention the custom headers and footers. So what can you do? But yeah, let's move forward. The next news item that I've got is may or may not actually mess with you guys, but I wanted you to know about it because I got excited about this. Gutenberg 5.8 was released, and it has a prototype of the new blocks in the widget areas of WordPress sites. Now, this is not live on Core yet, so if you do not use the Gutenberg plugin, you're not going to have to worry about this, or you're not going to have this. The reason I brought this up is because this is set to be included in one of the updates coming soon for WordPress Core. So what this is going to be is that all of the normal block editor blocks are now going to be available for any widgetized areas on your site, such as headers, footers, and sidebars. If you're using the Gutenberg plugin, you can use that stuff right now. If you're not, you can't. The difference between the Gutenberg plugin and WordPress Core, oh, you see I hit that, is that the Gutenberg plugin is the development plugin. It's basically a beta test for the entire thing, is where they test out new features. So if you like to have really up-to-date things, if you don't want to wait on them to be released, but deal with a few bugs here and there maybe, you can install the Gutenberg plugin, and it will continue to be updated, honestly, faster than Core will, because Core has to be so stable. I like using it. I tend to use it more. I actually have it installed on a lot of my sites where I really like having the upcoming features. I'm also the kind of person who uses nightly builds of different kind of open source software. So if that's you, then maybe you want to look into this plugin. But I was excited when I saw that there were widgetized areas getting the blocks, because I've had a very good time with the blocks. I've really enjoyed writing in those, and I didn't think I was going to be one of the people to do that. So who actually liked it, but I've been a fan so far. So I wanted to let you guys know that if you're the kind of person who actually likes the block editor as well, you can get a lot more out of it with the Gutenberg plugin, especially right now while a major feature hasn't been added to Core. I see George. Let's see. George says, I like the revamp, but the labeling feature would be cooler if it showed the sites where the API were active like EDD does. I totally get that. I'm not, honestly, I don't know what the back-end infrastructure looks like on how that would be to show those on your end like that. That may be a little bit more heavy than just being able to add in the label field. And 3D Prog asks if there are plans to implement artificial intelligence like Dialogflow into a Divi module, and I haven't heard about that. If that's part of any of the future plans, I haven't heard of it. I haven't seen that one on GitHub at all. That would be a really interesting idea, but as far as I know right now, it's not. That's something definitely to keep in mind, though. That's a really good idea. Uncle Social is right. That is when Divi becomes self-aware, and that is what puts web designers out of business, is when it becomes a self-aware piece of software and just designs everything on its own. It becomes DiviNet, and that leads to Judgment Day. There's a new Terminator trailer out there, so that's where my mind is when I hear that. So yes. But no, that's not something we thought of, or at least that I know of that we thought of. It's a really good idea. And then the final thing under news that I just brought up, that I wanted to bring up, is WordPress Tavern, WP Tavern, has an article talking about Google's mobile first index being default for new domains. And this really is not a big deal. This is something that can scare people when they see it, but this is actually no big deal for us at all. And that's actually why I wanted to let you know about it. What this means is that any new websites that are being crawled for the first time are going to be crawled by a mobile crawler, which means that if you have a slow-running desktop site and that is being displayed on mobile, you'll probably be penalized. But if you're using something like Divi and you have a responsive site automatically, that is not going to be an issue for you even a little. That's why I wanted to bring this up, because as long as you have a responsive theme and you're using Divi or using a theme like Divi, then you don't have to worry about that. Your old sites that you have will eventually move into the mobile first indexing, and they may have already been, but with Google doing this, they'll let you know when you start getting crawled by the mobile first bots rather than the traditional desktop ones. Like I said, not a big deal for most people, but if you or any clients are working on non-responsive sites for some reason, or as WordPress Tavern puts it, that they're moving toward, say, if you redirect your mobile site to a different URL, maybe that kind of thing, that's when issues with this could come up. In general, though, you guys have really nothing to worry about on this. Divi is great for this. That's one of my favorite things, actually, is I don't have to worry about the responsiveness anymore. Even 2-3 years ago, when I first started really looking into switching into freelancing and tech work and web design work, it wasn't as easy to have a responsive site. Like, I was having to use media queries to get everything to resize, and now it's just like, oh, Divi does that. It's like, okay, so you guys probably don't have anything to worry about, but you should know that it's going on and that they're switching that for all new sites, because I'm assuming that you guys are going to be building new sites from here on out. Given how Uncle Social says, given how big a share mobile traffic is now, desktop design is vanity, and mobile design equals sanity. He's trying to pivot to designing for mobile first and desktop as the afterthought. In general, yes. Most of the time, that's the way that it is. Most of the time, it's 55 to 60% mobile for most places. There are some sites, I think ours actually is one of them. I'd have to go make 100% sure on it, but where people are building, are coming to buy something, and they tend to do that on desktop, where like web design websites and design agency websites and things like that tend to get a lot more desktop traffic. So some of them, there are a lot of reasons to do it, but you're absolutely right. A lot of them, if you're not designing mobile first, then you're really messing up. And it's hard for me to get into my head when I design a new site. When I'm working on a side project, I'm like, this is really pretty, and then I look at it on mobile, I'm like, oh, that's hideous. That's awful. So it's a very hard line for old goats like me to get used to, that people don't use desktops anymore, and I'm the strange one who is surrounded by 4 monitors all day, every day. So that was the news. Like, that was the stuff that was going on in the news this week, and the last couple of weeks. There hasn't been a lot of big releases, big news, but I thought you guys would like to know about the Elegant Themes revamp more than anything else. So moving into the tutorial section, if you're new to the show, if you're just tuning in, remember that all of the links that we're going to go through today are in the description of this video. Also remember that you can always go back after this show is over and watch the archive in case you missed anything, so that it'll be on our YouTube channel and on our Facebook page. So Donald says on YouTube that mobile is now equal to desktop with 50-50 share of users. They've got to be treated equal but different. That's generally the way that I do it. That I didn't realize it was actually looking at specifically 50-50 in most cases. I know that they're different. I think my wife works for a library, and they get more desktop views than anything else because of the the patronage that they have. So it really is different, but like 95% is split down the middle like that. It's nuts to me, but I don't know. Maybe I'm stuck in 2008. Probably am. So the tutorial section today has some really cool stuff in it. The first one is just one that I wanted to mention. I always mention these whenever they come up, and it's just optimizing WordPress for speed. You guys have seen stuff like this on measuring it and improving page speed. This one generally talks about how caching works, which is one of the things I wanted to point out, is that we use caching plugins like WP Fastest Cache and W3 and all of these, but we may not know what they are. That's what Pagely goes through in this one. So they actually show you how it does what it does. They talk about optimizing your images and upgrading your hosting and what to look for in a host, and CDNs and web servers having full page caches. This is a very, very in-depth look at it. That's more than just the use TinyPing to optimize your images and look at GT metrics to be able to identify what's going on. I was working on some this past weekend. Well, I say weekend, but it was like the 3 minutes at a time. I guess it was toward the end of last week. I don't remember when it was, actually, coming to think of it. It doesn't matter. Recently, I was looking at some sites, and using caching brought down the site speed by like 3 seconds a piece, just by enabling preloading and caching. It was pretty significant. So check that out. It's very, very, very useful. And then WP Newsify has a what is the internet server error on WordPress sites. It's how to solve this, because we're all going to get this. Everybody is going to get an internal server error at some point, and you're going to have a user message you about it. So this one shows you how you can deal with 501s, 503s, and different errors that your users are going to come up with. It's 502s. I forgot about bad gateways. I don't run into that one nearly as often, but it does show what's going on with those. Like I said, this is stuff that you need to know about. It's not anything in particularly special right now, but it's something that if you've not taken a look at that in a while, just make sure you're familiar enough with it to be able to handle it when a client asks about it. So yeah, I actually had a client for a side job message me about getting a 503, and there was nothing I could do about that one, and had to send them to the host. So it was, sometimes that's all you can do. And then the Smashing Magazine, y'all know, close to my heart here. They always do such good content. They have tips for managing design systems, and this is a sponsored article, and I don't care. Their sponsored articles are always good. That lets a design system, as they say, enables a product team to create a product faster by making the design reusable. And it's just interesting, like creating vision statements and just moving forward with that, finding out what the stakeholders need and having them buy in, so that your system is set up to be able to succeed. That's a really big problem in a lot of design companies and a lot of agencies when you're dealing with clients, that you have that you're going to have that design by committee. And so if you have a clear system on how this works and you can get them to buy in on it and show them the benefits, it's going to work. I liked it a lot. Make sure that check the comments here. Do my best to scroll down in Facebook, because sometimes it doesn't like to update. And then skipping down a couple, I wanted to point out the Divi Chat episode on the episode 126 of their show, that is called Transitioning from the Backend Builder to the Visual Builder. Now, this is one I think is incredibly important. This is one I think people need to check out, because this is going to be very important for the long-term success of really everything involved in this, that we are so proud of the Visual Builder. And now everything that you get in the Visual Builder, you can also get in the BFB, or what you can see in the backend now called the new Divi experience. Those are the same thing. You can get both of the exact same experiences on there. So I want to encourage those of you who are still using the backend builder, the old Divi builder in the admin panel, to give a shot to the new one. It is so much better than it was the last time you may have used it. It has been improved just head and shoulders over the last year. Just every month there was something that improved it with stability and speed and features. And there's a lot of stuff that you just cannot do with the backend builder that you can in the visual builder. I think that listening to this episode and being able to experience all of the really cool things that they do, that you can do with the visual builder, I think that you'll become a convert at that point, because I know that there are a lot of people who love the backend builder. And I was never able to get into that one personally. I just liked the visual builder so much, but I know a lot of people do. And this is a good podcast about being able to move from the back end to the front end. And if you haven't done that in a long time, if you haven't done that in a long time and given the visual builder a shot, I really, really, really suggest that. I see Uncle Social says, I gave up on watching Divi Chat. It got too heavy with the presenters trying to sell their own learning courses. And that's one thing I've seen people say that, and I've not actually run into that. Maybe it's the episodes that I've watched that I never saw a whole lot of the selling on theirs. That was the ones I've listened to have always been really interesting, but I'm not... The way that I listen to podcasts is an episode by episode thing where I look at a topic and may not binge the entire list. So because of my cherry picking like that, I very easily could have missed the majority of things like that. I'm probably doing a lot of different podcasts actually. Excuse me. And then Cats Who Code, the very last one under tutorials today, has a how to manage a successful web design business. And I figured, I saw this headline and I was like, does that really apply to the people who watch my show? And I was like, yeah, of course it does. So this is one that really did. I mean, this one is spot on for y'all, where they talk about things like fixing problems and things like that, like growing pains. Like if you don't fix the issues that your business might have early on, that you won't make it to later ones, because those end up being a foundational issue with a lot of it. Like people failing to pay invoices. What do you do? How do you handle people who don't pay an invoice? Do you just invoice them again and hope? Or do you have to do something a little more aggressive to get paid? I've known people who have gone into freelancing and design, and when somebody doesn't pay, they're like, well, I've sent it like 3 times and they just haven't paid. I don't know what to do. And that's when you have to do the uncomfortable thing. I mean, and they keep taking the person as a client. And it's like, you don't need to keep doing work for people who aren't paying you. And so it's a very, very common issue. Things like that come up all the time when running a design business. So it's just thinking about that. One of the things they say that the most common cause of failure for startup businesses is for cash flow problems. And you spend more money than you're bringing in. Obviously, that's a bad idea. So what they talk about is maybe you need to hire somebody else sometimes. Maybe you spend the money to hire an extra designer and you can get through the work that you've got faster and you'll be able to take on different clients. It's a very, very good article to talk about some of this stuff. They're talking about the value that the stuff that your clients and the things that you bring to the table are. It's like understanding the key performance indicators for your business, the KPI, and ask your teams to work with accounting and track how much time you're spending on each client versus the money that client brings into your agency. That is the most important thing that you can do to make sure that you're on track with your business. It is hard to do for most people. This is not something that I am good at. It is very easy to fall into that trap, especially when you're a freelancer or you're a small business of, I'm making money, or at least I'm in the black, so I'm okay. And that is not necessarily true, because you could be making a lot more money. You could be having much more of a buffer than you do currently if you weren't doing things inefficiently. If you weren't dealing with so many, if you weren't basically paying to work with some clients for the other clients with a better KPI to make up that slack. So it's you need to check that out and look at that if you haven't. The way they put it is that one client might love every design and sign off on the changes with only a minor tweak, while another client might hate every design and ask for revision after revision. The value of the client who rarely asks for changes is higher because they take up less of your time for the same amount of money. And that's what it is in the end. It's just make sure that you're getting the value from the client that they're getting from you, because one thing that people tend to forget in web design businesses, especially web development, writing, design, and generally anything that you can do where it's a client and consultant or contractor relationship, is that these are mutually beneficial. That these are not supposed to necessarily be differences in power. That just because someone has hired you to do something doesn't mean that you are at their beck and call. And just because you are the one who has been hired doesn't mean that you're in control of everything, because they're the ones who may need something, or they can still have feedback even though you're the creative. So it is a mutually beneficial relationship, and it's really honestly very hard to do that. And they bring up some ideas on how to do that, and it's a good article that I like and wanted you guys to know about. I see Donovan Gayot, I'm going to mispronounce that. I apologize. On Facebook, says, huge fan of your articles. First time on live. Just wanted to say thanks for the many great tips over the past few years. And I appreciate that, Donovan. Thank you. Oh, I kicked the table in excitement. I really appreciate that. Glad to see that you were able to join us on the live show. Hopefully you'll be able to come back and enjoy. So yeah. For those of you who are new, like Donovan, for those of you who may just be tuning in, we've actually gotten through the tutorials and the news this week. I've been going through fairly quickly because what I want to do is get to the resources. I so rarely get to talk about the resources. This time I wanted to make sure that I got down through them, because I don't ever want to necessarily really skip the tutorial section, because they're huge benefits to a lot of people. That there are a lot in there that people can latch onto. But I also really like talking about some of the resources, because they're the more fun things. They're the more abstract, wider world stuff that we can talk about, as opposed to the nuts and bolts, nitty gritty stuff. Excuse me. So I see the first one that I put on here is a Yoast article, and this one really hit me, because I've been thinking about this a lot lately, especially because, like, it's called "Should You Keep Your Old Content?" I want y'all to think about that for a second. I want y'all to think about the old content that you have floating around out there on the internet. Whether it's a personal blog, whether it's a business blog, whether it is a project that has honestly run its course and is just out there as itself doing its passive thing. Whatever it is that you've got out there, should you keep it? Should you keep the old content exactly like it is and just let it be? Yoast says no. Because I was thinking about this for old blogs that I have, that like the one I started, my Professor Beach blog that I started when I started blogging and doing all of this about 11 years ago now, 10 years ago now, I don't remember, and very long time ago. And do I want that content still out there? And there are two kinds of pieces of content on here that you may think about. There are the pieces of content that you might not want out there anymore. For some reason, the the content just doesn't fit you anymore. Maybe you've rebranded, maybe you've moved into a different direction, maybe that's just not the person you are anymore. Or there's the actually outdated content where you have the content that has wrong information, where at one point it was very useful and it did what it did really well, but now it just isn't right anymore. And so the thing is that they talk about here is, do you want to keep that, and how can you manage all of this? I see Uncle Social actually says, some clients I work with insist that so much of their content is evergreen, but evergreen doesn't mean immortal. Some kinds of content can be outdated and technically wrong. And that is very true. That is incredibly true. That the idea of that's a really good point. I'm going to actually use that again somewhere. I'm stealing that. That's now mine. That evergreen doesn't mean immortal. What evergreen content is, and some people haven't heard this term before, evergreen content is content that no matter when you go to it, no matter whether it's a 2011 or 2021, you're going to look at that content and the topic will be relevant. That topic has relevance no matter what. So that doesn't mean, like Uncle Social said, that it is. That doesn't mean that it's immortal. That doesn't mean that the same information that was relevant in 2011 is relevant in 2021. What that means is that you have to update that content to keep it relevant. A lot of the content on the Elegant Theme site, we end up doing updates to because it's evergreen, that people are always going to be looking for how to do X in Divi. Well, we hope they're always going to be. But it may change. The way that content is put out there, the way that you do X, will change over time. So we need to make sure that our evergreen content stays evergreen, that the needles don't turn brown. So that's what Yoast is talking about in this, where you cannot keep all of your content. It is impossible to do. The way that they say it is that every so often you need to do some cleaning. And that's really what it is. It says, otherwise you're hurting your chances of ranking in Google. The way that they say it, honestly, is the best way. There are only a limited number of spaces in Google's rankings, and if you want to get there, you have to really put out the best stuff that you can. Google will only show 1 or 2 results from the same domain if the search results for a specific query. So if you're a high authority domain, you might get away with 3 results, and that's really important. That is really important to think about, that even if you are the be all end all of your niche, then you may still not get more than 3 because they do look at different places. So the way that they say is, if you've written 3 articles focusing on the same or very similar keywords, you're competing with yourself for those search results. That if you have now I can't think of anything. If you have one looking at Star Wars Galaxy's Edge at Disneyland, Star Wars Galaxy's Edge in Disney World pre-release, and then the current Star Tours at Disney World at Hollywood Studios, those 3 are very similar, even though they're different. So you may not rank for all of them. You're confusing Google, is what they're saying. So you can't blog about the same content over and over. You have to do some content management. Now, what they say about this, and this is where it's really important for you guys who are doing content for people, like Donald says on YouTube, that a lot of the time evergreen just means, quote, I don't want to write any other content. And that's true. That's true. If you don't want to write any more content, then you're not going to stay evergreen. But one thing that they say is update the valuable content. If the article is still valuable to provide information, if it gets a lot of traffic from Google, is it in line with your site and your company? Maybe your company's changed and you don't do that anymore or promote that. Old content can be very, very good like that. You may want to just update the information in it, or you might replace it, as they put it, the delete and redirect, where that old URL just takes you to a brand spanking new, clean, perfect new article. You can do that. 301s give you about 95% of the domain authority linking through, so you're not going to lose probably any kind of ranking by 301ing, and 95 is a bit low from some of the stuff I've read from Yoast. And then the big way, well, they also say solve it with site structure. One thing is to, and this is kind of the same thing as I was going to talk about, but they say solve it with site structure, where you have one cornerstone article, the best thing that you write about that particular topic, and then all of your other topics on that link back to that one article. That, sure, they can link back to certain ones of the others, but if they're all linking back to that one main article on that topic, then Google will prioritize that as the most important one among them and rank for that particular page over the others, and that one then links out to all of the other ones. That is, I love cornerstone content. I'm trying to wrap my head more around cornerstone content as a marketing strategy, just for different things. And it's interesting to me on how it affects search results, and that's really important to most people, obviously. So you want to make sure that you take advantage of that. And then they say, have you written multiple articles on this content? Are they pretty much the same? Are they actually ranking for the same things? And if they're ranking for the same things, then those types of articles should be merged. They say that make one really awesome article out of the 2 or 3 that you've written, then delete and redirect the old articles. They say, Yoast says, I would write the new merged article on the URL that attracted the most traffic from Google. That way, what you're doing is funneling them all to a single entry point on your site, and then you can lead them where you want them after that. You're not having to split your efforts 3 ways and have maybe a third of it be less effective than the other 2/3, because you have it in one place that you can optimize and get those people in and lead them through whatever customer journey they need to make through your site. It is incredibly important for y'all to do this, for me to do this, for us as a whole to do this, because old content, if you've been blogging and writing and have an existing website out there, and you've got a lot of stuff, like we've got over 2,000 articles in our blog archive, and we're going through it to make sure that we have the best articles in our blog archive. So it happens to every single website out there. So if you haven't thought about it, think about it. I say Madalena is back, that you forgot to say hi 2 weeks away. So hi. Hi Reed. Hi you too. I didn't even think, it messed me up too. 2 weeks away always kind of is one of those things you get kind of flustered as you're doing it, and it's like, oh, what is going on? That happens to a lot of people. So happens to me a lot. So the next one under here is an article that we at Elegant Themes published. It's semantic versioning, what it is, what it isn't, and why you need it. People get really confused about version control. They get very confused about what each individual number in a changelog means, and as developers, why it's a great idea to use semantic versioning to be able to go through 5.1, 5.2 and things like that that you might not want to start with 1.0 right away, like Gutenberg. For a long time I used Gutenberg the first time in 0.6. 0.6 was the first Gutenberg that I used, and there are a lot of ways. This is a really good article on just showing you some best practices, what to think about with semantic versioning, and what each of it means, the 5.1.2, things like that. Then Yoast has an article that I thought you guys would also like to know called Common Beginner Mistakes in WordPress. And this happens a lot. And really think about this. It's really really a very easy thing to do, and we all should refresh ourselves on this, that it's easy to fall into these beginner mistakes even if we're veterans on it. And if you're new to WordPress, these are the kind of things that everybody messes up on. So if you've ever done this or are doing this or didn't know about this, do not feel bad. These are the ones where you and I and everyone else needs to make sure that this is done. So please just remember every once in a while to go through and make sure you do all of this, because it's very easy to forget. Not changing your permalinks properly, that you are leaving it on the default of the P question mark equals 14972, all of that you don't want that. You want it to have an actual URL permalink structure that works well with your site, whether that is a categorization, whether that's using author stubs, whatever it is, you are going to want to make sure that you have your URLs exactly like you want. And you want to do that as well as you can from the beginning. Please do that from the beginning, because otherwise, if you decide that you want to change from /category/title to just /title, it is a huge pain to redirect everything in WordPress to those new ones. I might have had to fight with that for a long time when I was first learning WordPress on how to do that. I don't suggest that for anybody. Read, as he puts it, /index.php/post is no bueno. It is no bueno. No bueno. Don't do that. No, never. No good. Never. Please don't do that. Please don't use index.php stuff. And then don't forget to update. Really, I forget to update a lot. One of the things I like about WordFence and different security plugins is that they tell you whenever anything is out of date. That they say you have X plugin and theme updates that need to be gone through. And if it's a site you don't check on very much, that is very, very useful. It is so useful for that, because I've forgotten to update so many sites before, and those emails are like, oh yeah, maybe I should do that. Also the emails from SiteGround who send me like, hey, we updated your site for you. I'm like, cool, thanks, buddy. That happens and helps very well too. Don't have too many plugins. When I started working in WordPress, I shouldn't say working, excuse me. When I started using WordPress, I thought plugins were the best thing ever. They were what made me switch from Blogspot to WordPress for my personal blog. That's all I had at the time. Man, I had so many plugins. It did everything. I could do everything with plugins. And now I'm like, can I do that with PHP? Can I add just a line of code into there, and will that do that? Like, I try to get by with as few as I can, because over time, and plugins are not bad. You'll still be running lots of plugins on most sites, but there are things that you don't need plugins for that you can do, or get the or use multiple, or use one plugin to do multiple things and really combine into one. And then, guys, here's the thing. It took me 6 years before I did this one on number 4, not creating a child theme and making changes. I think it was like 2014 before I used a child theme. Think about that. Think about how terrible a decision that was. Any change that I made in any of the core files or anything at all, completely wiped out. I was wondering why things like that happened. Don't know how I missed it. Don't know what I did wrong to do that to myself, but I did. So please use child themes, and always use a Divi child theme. You can install those super easy, but remember that. Please use child themes. I can't stress enough how wonderful it is to use child themes, because things aren't going to break. And if something does break, you remove it from the child theme and your site still works, because you've only removed it from the child and you haven't removed base functionality. So child themes are great. Please use them. I am converted. And then deleting content the wrong way, making, there are ways to do it. Not deleting the default content where you have the hello world post, the sample post, the sample page, sample comments, all of this. Delete those. It's really, really, really easy to leave those up there and just have them as part of the site and not think anything about it, but get rid of them, move them to trash very soon. And and like I said, the not deleting content the right way, basically you want to make sure that you don't get 404s. That's what it is. You want to make sure that everything you've done is done the correct way so that everything leads to where it should on your site. And I see that there are some, I see that there are some comments on YouTube that I've missed. Katu asked, would you recommend TXT PNG as content rather than text boxes just for static text like logo, fonts, stuff like that? For logos, I like pings a lot. Like I wouldn't see Uncle. Sorry, hold on. I'm getting confused. I'm going to follow the conversation here. Uncle Social says for logos, yes, unless you're a CSS master. For anything else, no. It's bad for accessibility. Screen readers for the visually impaired, and Google will score your site badly and will punish you. Yes, the I had to wrap my mind around this for a second. Yes, the definitely use PNGs and ping. I call them pings. I'm probably making somebody cringe out there, but I use those for logos and things like that. The reason I don't like using is exactly what Uncle Social said. When it comes to Google, they won't actually parse the words on the image itself. So that if you've got actually an image with text on it, a meme of anything like that, using it however you do, they won't parse that text. What they will parse is the meta text, the alt text rather, the title, and the file name of that particular image. So that's where they're going to get the content for any kind of search rankings. And those are usually ranked differently, not necessarily worse or anything, but they're ranked differently because they're from images. So you might get a top image result for that and not necessarily a top search result. So it depends on what you want and what you're targeting on it, where you can do that, but it also makes for a very strange look on a site when someone like tries to copy and paste a quote or share it for Twitter, where they're not able to go and copy that quote and it just turns out to be an image. I've had that happen, and it's not my favorite thing, but in its defense, in doing that, you can make some really cool looking sites doing that. That especially with responsive design, if you can do well with it, you can. But I tend to say always use text of some kind. But logos, yeah, absolutely. Put that in a ping. I've used taglines and stuff like that under logos all the time. And like Uncle Social also said, for screen readers and things like that, they also won't parse anything but the alt text. So it's very important to have appropriate alternate text on your images when you do. So if you do something like that, make sure that all of the text that's in the image is in the alternate text for accessibility purposes, because that will be able to boost your ranking because Google looks at accessibility. Sir, in mobile, dual column possible in text elements? Arun asks. I think so. I am 80% certain that was included in a recent update. It should be in one of the options. I'm not 100% because I actually haven't used that, but I was thinking it was. If it's not, I'm pretty sure it's being looked at because I saw it somewhere. But I think we did that, and because I remember in the content team, I believe it was Jason who was celebrating that being easier for tutorials where you don't need CSS to be able to do that. I think so. Now that I'm thinking about it, it's like I don't know if I've never done it, so now I can't think. That was not something I've ever done. Oh, Sorry. Hopefully someone else will be able to answer that one in the comments. Uncle Social says, well, Dave asks, what's the best child theme out there, and why doesn't ET create one for us? Dave, Uncle Social says, use the one-click child theme plugin. I use the Divi theme rather than the Divi plugin and a theme. I honestly think the reason that we don't have that is because of plugins like one-click child theme, the Orbysius child theme creator, which is what I use, because it is a one-click and you have a child theme based on your current theme, and then you can deactivate the plugin and you don't need it. Also, divi.space, maybe /child theme, they have a Divi specific child theme, space child dash theme. I'm gonna get a 404, I know it. No, but that's not what I needed. They're build a child theme, Divi child theme builder. There is also this, I'm linking in the comments to the video. That is specifically a Divi child theme builder. That we know works very well. Nathan, our content manager, is the one who turned me onto that one. That's the one he uses and recommends. And really, these tools are the main reason that I think that we don't, because with tools like this out there, this development has been done and it's available. I have never, not one time, and watch this, knock on wood, not one time have I had a problem with one of the child themes I've created through a plugin like that ever having any kind of issue. Like, they've all been perfectly fine. And by perfectly fine, I mean they've done their job and had no issues whatsoever. So, but you guys, I, again, did not get all the way through the resources. There are a lot more on here, but I'm out of time. So one more thing before I go, there is a CSS Tricks article called Color Contrast Accessibility Tools on here that I really want you guys to check out, because as we've talked about accessibility being super important, it's just more important than ever. I mean, it's one of those things where as the web develops, we need to be making sure that we take into consideration making our websites available to everyone possible. So this is one where it's making sure that the colors that you're using actually are readable to the most people, and with different ways of eyesight and color blindness, things like that. So check that out. Super useful. Thought you guys would want to know about it. So that said, you guys, that is all the time that we've got today. I do apologize for the stream at the beginning when we were having our hiccups. So if you've missed any of this stream, you can go back to the beginning and watch it on our Facebook or YouTube channels. Make sure that you tell YouTube and Facebook that you want to get notified about us. Otherwise, they will not tell you every time that we go live. Every week we have 3 live streams. If there's a Divi feature release, Matt goes through the feature on Monday mornings at 6 a.m. Eastern. On Tuesday afternoons, Jason or Danietta goes through a Divi use case and shows you how to use Divi in a certain way with a tutorial that's released that day. And then I have this Friday at 3 on... I have this stream on Fridays at 3 every Friday. So I hopefully will get you guys to tune in again. Like I said, remember to ring the bell and tell Facebook that you want to be notified. And like I said, thank you guys. I really appreciate you coming out. And I want you guys to have an absolutely magnificent week. I hope that your weekends go well. And I will see you next Friday. Bye, everybody.